Tash Dile everyone, I am Sakina Bhatt and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that tells you about this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, CTA President and Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile, congratulates Chancellor Angela Merkel on the 4th national election victory. Sino-Tibet issue is a struggle between forcefulness and truthfulness. His Holiness the Dalai Lama to MPs of Baltic states. China suspends state scholarship for UCSD over invitation to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. CTA preserves Tibetan language while China's policy annihilates Tibetan language. CTA President in Parliament. Earlier this week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, CTA President Dr. Lobsang Singye and Speaker Venerable Khenpo Sonam Temple congratulated German Chancellor Angela Merkel on winning a 4th consecutive victory in the German national election on 25th September 2017. In his congratulatory note, His Holiness the Dalai Lama wrote, "The strength and stability you have brought to your leadership within the European Union has been a beacon of hope and inspiration, not just in Germany but to the wider world." President Dr. Singye, on behalf of the Central Tibetan Administration, said, "As Tibetans, your victory is of great significance to us. We remain constantly enthused by your resolute determination to raise your voice for the voiceless and powerless." Speaker Venerable Khenpo Sonam Temple wrote to German Chancellor Angela Merkel on behalf of Tibetan Parliament in Exile, stating that, regardless of Chinese criticism, your unwavering reverence towards His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and the cause of Tibet will always remain in our hearts. The Christian Democratic Union Party, led by Chancellor Angela Merkel, has registered over 32% of the total vote share of the election, becoming the single largest party in the German Bundestag. Chancellor Angela was elected as the first female Chancellor of Germany in 2015. On Sunday this week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama greeted the parliamentarians of the Baltic states in Riga, Latvia. Andris Bukis, Tibet supporter and Latvian member of Tibetan Parliament, welcomed His Holiness and showed his deep concern on the Tibet issue, as the Baltic states were also occupied by foreign power for over 50 years. His Holiness mentioned that the Chinese authorities are using all sorts of methods to eliminate the Tibetan spirit and said that the human determination cannot be destroyed by force. He advised them not to believe in Chinese propaganda and see for themselves the situation of Tibet, its language, culture, education and ecology. He stated that the Sino-Tibet issue is a struggle between forcefulness and truthfulness. The power of weapons seems vigorous in the short term, but the power of truth will always be stronger in the long run, he concluded. On Tuesday this week, His Holiness condemned terrorist acts being carried out in the name of religion and called it terrible that faith is being considered a source of conflict. He said that members of different religious traditions can definitely live together and one who practices terrorism cannot be claimed religious. It's wrong to call Muslim terrorists or Buddhist terrorists because from the moment you kill, you are no longer religious. You are a terrorist, His Holiness affirmed. China Scholarship Council, a branch of the Chinese government that funds overseas for Chinese citizens, has announced that it wouldn't provide scholarships for students aspiring to study at UC San Diego, according to media reports. The move, apparently prompted by the university's invitation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to address its commencement ceremony in June, is seen ostensibly as a step towards discouraging other overseas universities from inviting speakers with the views contradicting the Chinese government. An icon of universal peace and non-violence, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was invited to address the university's commencement ceremony on 17 June. The address by the Tibetan spiritual leader was hailed by many as historic and inspirational, while a section of Chinese students from the university have protested it over claims that the Tibetan spiritual leader represents a separatist clique. The protest from the Chinese students, with subtle backing from the Chinese consulate, has led to concerns among students as well as professors at that time, who have grown nervous over the Chinese government's increased encroachment on academic freedom in US and other Western universities over the past few years. It has also fueled fears within the overseas Chinese student communities, with some describing it as unethical. Some have called it undermining the spirit of free debate that underpins liberal education system. However, the scrapping of state scholarship funds for UC Santiago was only one of the many pressure tactics used by the Chinese government to nudge Western universities to accommodate official Chinese policies and sensitivities. Over the past few years, various academic institutions have also faced pressure to self-censor to appease either Chinese authorities or Chinese students themselves. The president of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Singye, expressed support for the parliamentary resolution to implement Tibetan as the formal language at official CTA events. Dr. Singye attributed the success of Tibetan culture in exile to the hard work and enduring efforts of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and explained that, as per the aspirations of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the CTA president, since its inception, has aimed to revive and preserve the rich Tibetan culture in exile. Dr. Singye added that the policies of the CTA have the preservation and promotion of the Tibetan culture at its core, whereas the Chinese government has been trying hard to annihilate the Tibetan identity, culture and language through its hardline policies. So much for this week. See you next Friday. Have a great weekend.